Hello, my name's Fred McNeil, and thank you for watching QAC TV7. We've started a show where we interview veterans who live or are from Queen Anne's County. There's 3,353 veterans who live in our community, and we're trying to get as many as we can just to hear their stories. Most people don't know that they're veterans and certainly don't know their stories. I have a good friend of Bernie Sadusky's, Perry Martini, today. Thank you, Perry, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And it only took us 20 minutes to get on, but the pre-show was longer than the show.
Exactly right. Technical difficulties.
Now, Perry, let me ask you this. We always start out. Where were you born and raised?
Warren, Ohio.
Oh, Warren, Ohio.
Very close to Youngstown and Cleveland. Yeah.
Sure, okay. As soon as I get over the mountains of Pennsylvania, it's suddenly flattening out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Indians fan and Browns fan my whole life.
Oh, okay. I love the old Bob Feller, maybe a little Rocky Calavito is my man.
My man was Rocky, yeah.
Oh, I know. Ohio, when you, high school football, basketball, baseball? What?
Yeah, I played all of it. I played, I guess my claim to fame is I was all-state running back in Ohio, back of the year in division.
Oh, Ohio was amazing.
Double.
Good
yeah,
football.
Good
That's
school,
good football. Okay.
I was even recruited by the man, by Woody, but that's another good story. But I was a good ball player, football player.
Well, if you were all-state in Ohio, I know you were
It was
good.
something, yeah. I was lucky to have good people playing with.
Good. Now let me ask you get out of the high school.
Right.
I know, but what, all of a sudden you knew you wanted to go to the Naval Academy? It came out of nowhere or what?
Actually, it started with my uncle Mario, my dad's younger brother. And Mario was the only of the brothers that came from Italy. My dad came from Italy, immigrant, 1927, that actually went to school and college. And in the war, I mean, he went through ROTC and he became a naval aviator during World War II as a blimp pilot. And then he became a aviator fixed wing. So growing up, I sort of always admired the fact that he did something a little bit different than my dad as a barber and all the uncles. They were tradesmen, great guys, great Americans too, and all served in the service. But Mario and that flying thing kind of attracted
me. It just got in you.
12 years old, I told him, I'm going to go to the Naval Academy.
All right. At 12?
And I'm going to fly. Okay. And he said, well, those are good goals, we'll see. I was able to live my dream. Worked out. I got an appointment by Congressman Kerwin in those days out of Ohio. I went to prep school for a year and played with.
So you went to Naval Academy Prep School?
Well, I went to Naval Academy Prep School, which actually was a West Point prep school. It was a feeder for colleges: Syracuse, Penn State, Army, Navy.
All right. Okay.
I played with three guys that went into the pros.
You were playing football there too?
Playing football. Jimmy Brown went there, Ernie Davis.
Jimmy Brown.
Yeah.
Not a bad lacrosse,
Not
but
a bad
played football.
Yes. So essentially from that, I got an appointment. So I was a year later than my high school getting into the Naval Academy.
So you went to the prep school.
Prep school.
And so what year did you actually start the Naval Academy?
67.
67. Oh, so we're beginning the Vietnam thing is beginning to hang over us. All right. Now tell us about football at the 150-pound team.
No. I played on the regular ball team.
Now, Coach Hart. Who was coaching in those days?
Coach Harden had left. It was Coach. His name it doesn't matter. Okay. But he only stayed for 1 year, and then Rick Forzano came in.
Okay, I remember Rick Forzano. And you actually played running back.
I was a running back on a JV team my sophomore year and the varsity. I played the freshman team. In those days, we had a freshman varsity.
You couldn't play varsity as a freshman, right?
You only had 3 years eligibility. So sophomore year I played only on the JVs. I was a punching bag for the defensive guys. And then junior year, I got in some academic trouble. And I needed to study, and I also got injured, knee injuries.
So
and I didn't want to ruin my
football.
I passed off of football. I became the class president, and even the academic board said you can't do that. You can't be a football player. Study, which I did. I finally graduated in 1971 successfully.
Now, tell me, what was the academy? In the 60s, it was still tough.
It was tough. It was tough. It was a tough 4 years, and I'll tell you why. Height of Vietnam.
Right.
All of us were concerned.
And the military became uncool and unfashionable, right?
Very much so. We got stuff thrown at us in town.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Indianapolis?
Yeah, because the Johnnies were there, St. John's College.
St. John's, right up there.
And a lot of activists were there, Democratic Society for Peace and all that stuff. They'd come down and kind of, they would make life a little bit miserable. But, because of the Vietnam War, there were a lot of guys in my class that they weren't draft avoiders, but they decided to go to the Naval Academy before their number came out because it was a year for the draft.
Yes,
they wanted to be officers. They're going to serve, but they also knew that they would go there rather than be drafted and have to go over volunteer and go in the front line. So they were just coming to and also get an education. So we had a lot of guys come in. 1394, we only graduated 875. A lot of guys quit sophomore year. They got out. There was no problem with commission or commitment. But it was interesting because everybody was concerned what was going on in Vietnam, and it was Nixon got elected president in '68. As you know, that year, Martin Luther King got assassinated. RFK got assassinated.
Was a terrible year.
Terrible. '68 was bad. They had riots in the streets and because of Martin Luther King, and so I was finishing my freshman year, and things were kind of interesting in the world.
And you still have the option to opt out.
At the end of sophomore year, the following year, but I decided to stay.
Good for you.
I really wanted to be a Navy pilot.
Now, my one connection to the Naval Academy, do you know the name Al Cantello, who's your track?
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
That was my track coach.
Yes.
I was up on the off season. I ran track, indoor and outdoor.
What did you run?
I ran the 440.
Okay.
The 440, and I was in the 440 relay and 880 relay in those days because it was yards, and I was a 100-yard sprinter, so I did pretty well.
Some speed, okay.
Yeah, I was pretty fast from high
Al
school.
Cantello is my greatest hero. Besides being a great javelin thrower, which he was, held the world's record for a month.
He was an Olympian. Yeah, he was
yes.
a gold medal winner. Yeah.
But as a kid, if you remember the Naval Academy when you went there, you just walk in the gate.
Oh yeah.
There's a couple of cops there.
Go
ahead, guys. Go ahead.
No security.
We'd walk to the track, which was right in that one gate. Al Cantello kind of adopted. We had a place on the South River. You might know, right outside.
Yes.
And Al would say, "Hey kids, rake the jump pit. Hey, rake this." Jeez. And we became like track rats. And then your indoor track was amazing. But anyway, this is about you.
Well, I'll tell you, I have to. When we get to that point in my career, I came back to Naval Academy at the very end of my Navy career, and we'll get to that because there's an Al Cantello story to that.
Oh, okay.
So
great. He's a great guy.
Remind me about Al Cantello when I get to that point.
So now, a lot of people don't know. Academics, I thought, from what people tell me, were very rigorous. I mean, it wasn't like University of Maryland where you could take physics for poets and astronomy for, guys.
We all got an engineering degree of some kind, either in regular engineering or naval engineering or aerodynamics, thermo. The academic progress as I went through it was very difficult. I actually failed 4 or 5 courses, had to repeat them. There was physics, there was advanced physics, there was thermodynamics, there was weapons.
I mean, these are difficult courses.
These were very hard courses, and I was pretty good in math. Verbal, I was not so good because I grew up, English was my second language, so I struggled through.
Well, you're a Martini, my mother's an Alejandro, first generation from Italy, so we've got some good blood in us. Right?
My mom and dad were both born there, and I had both grandmothers in my house, so Italian was the main language.
You had a lot of pasta.
I got held back in first grade. I couldn't because I didn't spell sandwich. I spelled it sanguicha with a G, W-I-C-H-A.
So you're in the academy.
Yeah.
You get injured and banged up, academics. So you turned the boat around, it sounds like to me, and started heading out academically on top of things.
I wasn't on top of things. I graduated near the bottom of the class, but I graduated.
Okay, that's
and
the
then
important thing.
I got some good mentors that said, "Look, it's all done. It's all behind you. You got your Navy ensign bars. Get off to Pensacola." So I went to Pensacola about a year later.
And this is flight school.
And it was flight school, and I served in Pensacola for about a year, got through my flight training, and then I went off to Corpus Christi and got my advanced training, carrier qual, all that kind of stuff.
Now for the non-pilot,
yes,
flight school real difficult and demanding? I mean, is there...
It was a skill you had to develop. Ground school was pretty straightforward. Navigation, academics was straightforward. It was the flying skills in which you had to master once you got airborne.
Now, again, a non-pilot. I tell people say, "What did you do in the Army?" I said, "I flew LMDs." Fred, what's an LMD? A large mahogany desk. But how you men and women now? Mm-hmm. Is it like with sports? Somehow you've got are people born to fly? You think?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that you can do. Athletics is one of those things. You have to have good hand-eye coordination, good skill sets.
Okay.
You got to be able to think quickly, make decisions smoothly, and you have to be able to sit on your hands when things go wrong and make good decisions. So you have to really have a discipline to yourself, a mental discipline. You can't be a Yahoo pilot, and Yahoo pilots are never going to make it.
Now, again, for the non-pilots, I mean, do you learn taking off and landing just by doing it? I mean,
absolutely.
There's no other way.
It's just basically that. I'll never forget when the 6th or 7th or 8th flight, I think maybe more, maybe 9th flight, the instructor took me out to an outside field with a T-34, small one-engine plane, and he says, "Okay, it's time for me to get out, and you're going to now solo." And so I'll never forget the experience of actually taking that airplane down the runway by myself, small airplane, and getting airborne, and like I was riding a Bronco. I was yelling and screaming, and I was thinking, "God, I've never been close to you. Keep me safe. I'm up here a little high by myself."
A lot of signs of the cross.
Did a bunch of touch and goes. I landed, take off, and I was supposed to do 5. When I did my 8th one, the instructor said, "Hey, Martini, land. We got to go back to base. You're running out of gas.
You're having too much fun.
I made a full stop. He got in the back and said, hey, you did okay. From now on, you do all the takeoffs and landings from the front. So it's good.
Again, for the non-pilot, how many takeoff, landings, solos do you have to do till you get your wings? I mean, is it by hours?
Many hours. I think, it was 18 months worth, so I never really figured out the hours. I would say probably about 300 hours total.
So it's a lot of time.
There's a lot of time. And you're doing a T-34, a T-28, you're going out to carrier qual on a boat at sea, which is another story. And then you're going out to Corpus Christi.
I got to ask you mentioned the carrier. Judge Ross, who's in town here, his dad, Naval Academy grad, he told me the most dangerous thing he ever did. He was in the North Atlantic. He was a pilot.
Yeah.
And the aircraft carrier is going up and down in the seas, and he's trying.
I never had to do that.
Okay.
We were on the Lexington, which was right off of Florida, the old Lexington, before I was still in station and when still in active duty. And we would go out very calmly and hit the carrier.
It was a calm time.
Yeah, it's calm, but it's kind of hard to hit running one way.
Well, it looks like a postage stamp from
this big, you know. So.
And it's just you develop a touch.
It's a touch. It's a very delicate touch. Every correction, kind of like life, and it teaches us, every correction you make is a small correction, and then there's a recorrection.
Okay.
So, you got to be careful.
All the time. So you get through flight school. Where was your first duty station, or how'd it go?
First duty station was out at Moffett Field, California.
Okay.
I was flying, I selected the propeller pipeline, with big multi-engine, 4-engine aircraft, P3 Orion.
Okay. These are big planes.
Big aircraft, 23 people on the board, 13-member crew.
Oh, it's a big crew.
So a lot of pilots, a lot of stuff, and a huge mission.
What was the mission?
A mission was basically anti-submarine warfare, reconnaissance, and intelligence gathering.
Okay. Now, again, off the coast of America, or places all over the world?
All over the world. I served in, I saw 60 countries, but I served in 11 different places in the world in a P3.
Okay.
Mostly overseas.
Now, is a P3 easy to fly, difficult to fly?
Again, lots of skill set.
Okay.
You do not get qualified to run the airplane and be in charge of it till you reach about 700 hours in the aircraft.
Oh, so you spend a lot of time in a co-pilot seat.
You bet. And then you go third pilot, second pilot, then you become the plane commander.
Okay.
It takes about 2 years.
Okay.
And then you get your own crew, and then you can fly for that last year and a half in the squadron. And then after that, you come back for other tours, then you're always going to be a plane commander.
Now, pilots in the Army,
yes,
we'd meet them occasionally.
Yep.
And they were in an atmosphere all by themselves, literally. I mean, they didn't pull certain duties, they didn't do this, they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Best and the brightest, or not?
We were privileged in the sense that we were protected, but being in squadrons, everybody was. Our air crew was. We were on restrictions on when we could. For example, you could not fly or be even on an airplane unless you stopped drinking 12 hours prior, and that's pre-flight. Really? So if the flight was at 10 in the morning, your pre-flight was at 7 the night before, no more alcohol. So it's 12 hours bottle of the throttle. That didn't mean drink a case of beer at 5 to 7. It meant, because that happened. Sure. Some guys would think they could drink as much as they want.
There's always a couple.
Didn't happen. Yes, absolutely. And that could turn to be very faithful.
It seems like, again, knowing nothing about aviation, it's a real team effort. It's a team.
Very much so.
I mean, on the ground, there's a team working on it. In the air, there's a team flying. Yeah. I mean,
absolutely. I had some close calls in the airplane, mostly at aircraft, at air stations overseas when it was so foggy, and it took a team effort to develop that station, communications, but then it's called cockpit management. It is a big team effort. And our crew mission was a team mission.
Okay.
We had anti-submarine warfare, so the guys in the back had to tell me something, the guys in the front had to do something. We were tracking submarines, Soviet submarines during the Cold War especially, and then on and on. So, and I did have 3 squadron tours. VP-46 on Moffett Field, then on VP-44 I went for my department head in Maine, and my last tour was I was commanding officer of VP-10 up in Brunswick, Maine. I have my own squadron.
When you're doing
anti-submarine warfare, yeah.
Is there a flight, obviously the flight, but I mean, you're doing a big circle over parts of the Pacific, and all these guys are collecting data?
Lots of multi-intelligent platforms are involved, including
which means?
Intelligence behind the scenes. It's not classified anymore, but for example, if we're out 4,000 miles or 3,000 miles from land and you're out there, there are actually underwater cables called Sound Underwater Systems, SOSUS, and those cables pick up Soviet submarines, and the sound process is made back at some place like a module that might be located on the West Coast or out in Japan, and those information pieces become our intelligence process. And then we get what's called an area of probability. It's maybe a couple hundred miles square.
So you're constantly
and
being
you kind of
fed,
just keep diving down. We drop sonobuoys in the water. We kind of point to where they are, and you get it down to the point where you can actually find the submarine within 100 yards. Okay. And then you go down real low.
How often? Okay, would you go out, and how often would you find a Russian submarine?
Almost always.
Always?
Oh, yes. We would go out with a lot of intelligence that was important.
So you knew where they were?
Yes, yes. In all the missions we were. Sometimes we had a hard time finding them, maybe a couple days, because it's a multi-mission thing. You're out there with an airplane. There's always an airplane in that area. Mm-hmm. So we were out there for 4 hours, and then somebody else was taking off for 4 hours, and they come out and relieve us, and we go back, and there was a continuous thing until we captured them. And you track them. It was most of it for national defense, so we knew where all the Soviets were. Okay.
Once you found them, what did you do?
We just stayed on top of them.
Oh, if they're down here, you're over there.
Covert, we'd stay up high. We'd make sure we track them. We'd have other gear on board that allowed us to track them, especially the nuclear. So it's pretty good. We'd also have... it's not classified anymore either. We'd also have our friendly subs that would be helping us. They track them down.
Did they know you were up there?
It's nothing secret. You read Tom Clancy's books.
Oh, no, you got to watch the Tom Clancy movie.
It's in the Tom Clancy books. So
okay, all right. So it's
nothing secret, you know.
So now, kept doing that. 20. How many years in the Navy?
I was 28.
Okay, so of the 28 years, were you flying all 28?
18 out of the 28.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, once you reach the age of 40,
they sit you
you're
down.
An old man in the Navy, or an old lady right now. You know, the girls are flying too. And you lose your hand-eye coordination skills, especially for the guys that fly in jets.
Well, it happens. I can't hit a baseball like I used to.
No, you can't. Jet pilots are even worse. They got to be careful at 38 or 39. Really? But they know what's going to happen. Eyesight, hearing, hand-eye coordination. There's just certain things. You know, we were talking earlier about running for office. You know, there's certain things at certain ages you can't do.
Lose.
You shouldn't do. You shouldn't be doing.
They tell you, or you know?
Oh no. They make sure that. See, I had my command tour. When I was 37 or 38, 39 years old. Okay. And after my command tour, I had a chance for one more flying tour, but it turned out that I never captured that. So I flew a desk for my last 10, 11 years. But I was 40, and they weren't going to send me to a flying tour. I was going to be maybe an admiral or overseeing a wing, but I was not going to be in a cockpit flying a crew anymore.
Okay, and that's just kind of accepted.
It's accepted. Everybody knows that the pipeline's going to end.
So what did you do at 40?
Well, what's that?
Well, they grounded you, or you grounded
yourself? I grounded myself. I went on other tours, and I had some great opportunities. Actually turned out that one thing led to another, and I ended up in the Pentagon. I was working for General Colin Powell. I was
with Powell. What was that like?
JCS staff, phenomenal. I was there for 3 years during the Panama insurrection, Just Cause, the Philippine stuff, when that collapsed. I was there for a lot of activity that was going on in the world.
Is Powell as good as leader as
yes, he was
he's
good.
Portrayed?
He was good. He knew how to make decisions. He was smooth. He told everybody, "I'm not here because I'm black. I'm here because I'm an Army general."
I'm good.
He accepted that. He was really good about that. About this baloney about somebody gave it to me because I deserved it. I earned it. Meritocracy. That's what the service is about.
Was he the best and the brightest you worked with, or did you other characters?
There was a couple of flag officers. When I came back on my last tour of duty, I was ready to retire, and I got a call from the superintendent at the Naval Academy. And he was going to be the new superintendent, come back for his second tour, because Naval Academy had some issues in the early 90s with some cheating scandals. And he was going to come back and be, his name was Admiral Chuck Larson. Sure. He had been the superintendent in the 80s, and he was coming back in the 90s to fix the place. He came out of retirement.
Yeah, okay. Right.
And he called me, and he said, "Would you like to be the deputy director of athletics?" I said,
"Yes,
sir. Be kidding me. You're going to pay me too?" And so I came back at the Naval Academy, back to where I started in 1994, and I was the athletic director. Deputy athletic director.
You went from flying planes to athletic director with the Pentagon and other stuff.
JCS intelligence work and doing some work with Powell. Then they gave me this last 4 years. It was supposed to be 2. I stayed for 4.
Was it a fun? It sounds like a fun
job. It was a
job.
fun tour. I told everybody I'm not flying airplanes anymore. I'm counting jock straps and footballs.
But it was 9 to 5, right?
It was kind of. I traveled with the football team. I did football contracts. Okay. got involved with Army Navy games. I was doing all the contracts.
Tell me about that. Okay,
go ahead.
I don't watch that much college football, but you know what? Yeah. I watch the Army Navy game just to see these kids marching in.
It's a great event. It's a great event.
From your end, was it?
Well, it's a pageantry that won't exist. You got pure amateurism on the field. The kids never quit. That's all they do for 4 years. Beat Navy, beat Army, beat Army, and it's in the football game. That's a big deal. Now the other sports too, that comes to pass. But anyway, so
you must have been right. You must have been. Remember when Notre Dame played Navy in Baltimore? Were you? Okay.
I was there.
And you were at the stadium. The stadium started out 100% for Notre Dame.
Yep.
100%.
Then it changed.
At about the third quarter, Navy playing them mano a mano. I think Notre Dame pulled it out at the very last moment, but the whole crowd.
I can remind you. It started raining in the fourth quarter. We had 3 straight onside kicks, and we recovered all 3 of them.
Navy did.
And 2 of the 3 we scored touchdowns on.
Okay.
And the third one, Charlie Weiss was the coach.
Yes.
He was on the Jumbotron.
Okay.
It looked like somebody hit him with a 2x4. He was so shocked. But you know what happened? We ran out of time.
Yes.
Otherwise, we'd have beat Notre Dame.
The toughest, what always amazes me, and we'll get a football in a second, Navy plays Notre Dame every year.
There's a reason for that.
2 to third quarters.
Yes.
And they stick with them. Then these 300-pound brutes just beat them down.
Yep.
And I know the one that I coached, Bernie will tell you, the summers out at Notre Dame. And because Navy saved Notre Dame's
big time.
Yes,
during the
because
war.
if it hadn't have been
during the
World
war
War II and
Notre Dame would have never had a football team.
And the school would have closed.
It would have closed.
The Holy Cross Fathers.
Yes, it would have been done.
Didn't have it.
And that's why they said at the time, Rip Miller, who was the coach, assistant athletic director at Navy, went back there and helped them. He was one of the 7 mules out of the 4 horsemen era. And he went back there and said that we had a guarantee from Notre Dame that they'll play us every year.
Ever.
And we did 127 straight years, except during COVID.
Oh, okay.
They had to cancel the game, which was really a bummer.
Is it a moneymaker for Navy?
Big time.
Oh, good.
And Notre Dame.
I'm sure.
It's very popular.
I mean, I just remember the Baltimore, but I've never seen I told the story just because of the crowd. A Baltimore, Irish Catholic Baltimore crowd went 100% for Navy. Who were some of the characters you ran in when you were doing athletics at Navy?
Oh, my goodness. I met a lot of people in the NCAA, like Joe Paterno, Bobby Bowden.
Yeah.
Funny man. And I did get to meet a lot of other great guys. Roger Staubach and Joe Bellino became friends of mine because they'd come back for a lot of things.
Sure.
And Joe, of course, just passed away a few years ago. But some great people at the Naval Academy that I got associated with, not only in the athletic business, but also at the Academy, the leadership laboratory that we call it.
Do you remember I'm sorry. Remember the years, do you remember the name T.J. Hall, played basketball for Navy? Remember when Navy went they had the former coach of Tennessee was coaching Navy.
Yeah.
And they went they lost the first round to Iowa or something, but it was a magical team that.
Yes. It was cool. That's DeVos. Don DeVos.
Yes.
Don DeVos was the coach.
Yes,
he went from Tennessee.
fantastic job.
He did a great job. And I remember the kid, too. And, of course, I watched David Robinson just take Navy to another planet almost.
I mean, not only an NBA star, but you go watch it. They used to play.
Yeah.
I saw a game where they played in the old field house.
Yeah.
Then they had a basketball court. And this guy was, what is he doing here?
Yeah. Football and basketball at Navy, and to get to the point, there's no finer gentlemen or men of character than David Robinson and Roger Staubach.
Really?
And they are role models for young men today, even though they're getting up in age. They both have done so much for society.
Do they come back to the academy regularly?
They come back often, and they are probably our best recruiting tool.
Oh, they really?
Because kids come to Navy. Kids come to Navy to play football because Notre Dame's on the schedule.
Oh, I mean, it's just, it's one of those games where you go, they're going to stick with them for 3 quarters, and then every 40 years they beat them, which is all right. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's cool, yeah.
So did you stay in that capacity and then retire? How to go?
4 years, retired from the Navy in 1998 after 28 years, almost 28. And then I decided to do something a little different. I went back to George Washington, got my doctorate in education, and ended up becoming the Assistant Secretary for Higher Education for the state of Maryland, working for Dr.
So you went from the military to education?
Education, and I kind of worked my way through that, found out that probably wasn't going to stay long in education with the administration because I hadn't cut my dues. I was a Navy pilot. And so from that, I got hired by Regent University, Villanova, and another college in the South to do some online and in-person teaching in ethics and leadership. And that's what I took on for about, I did that for about 12 years. But in the meantime, full-time, I went with a company called Academy Leadership seminars and
you're real big in the alumni now, yes?
Yeah. Okay. So, I got involved with Academy Leadership. That's what the company's called, but we're Service Academy grads and other grads from all 3 institutions, West Point, Navy, and military, and Army. And I did that for 18 years. And I was the director of leadership programs, wrote some books, did a lot of seminars and stuff. So anyway. We
have a member of a veterans group we've been talking about, and he says, he wears the ring like you do. And he says, Fred, you don't know about ring knockers, do you?
And
I said, Joe, what are you talking about? He He said, Fred, I can go anywhere in the world. There are people that will help me out. And I have their loyalty because they know I went through 4 years, you fill in the blank.
You bet.
And you know what? I've got your back.
It opens the doors. It really does. Great opportunity for young men and women today. And last year, to spin off from that, the Naval Academy had over 18,000 applicants.
18,000 for how many spots?
18,000 for 1,200 spots.
Okay.
So, it got whittled down to about 7,000 were qualified. That got whittled down to 4,000. And we took out 2,000 that were going to be accepted. Okay. And then it got down to 1,200. So,
how do you, it comes up in our veterans group, which you and I talking about. The older veterans are worried about the younger generation. I think this is nonsense, but they're worried about the younger generation not living up. What do you see in the young midshipmen?
Well, it's a different class. I mean, I went back, when I went back to the academy, and it was 4 years there, I also taught leadership and ethics.
Okay.
I did it as an adjunct professor. And I was looking at kids that were many years younger than me from a different generation. Sure. They were from the 90s.
You're the Beatles, they're somebody different.
But it wasn't just that. It was the way they processed information, the way they approached things. And so every 25 or 30 years, the kids are going to be different.
Sure.
I'm sure that when I was there as a midshipman in the 70s, 60s, that the guys that were from the 20s looked at me like an idiot, like, what's wrong with these guys? What's wrong with these guys?
Our parents didn't understand that.
No.
It's a generational
from the
thing.
generation of Depression era. But I think that's one of the things you have to understand. We also have to understand what they learn before they get there, and that's been changing rapidly.
Okay.
More quickly and rapidly than I like.
You think they're not as prepared?
Not as prepared,
Okay.
one, and number two, they're getting washed with a whole lot more stuff that doesn't belong in education.
Okay.
And that's going on right now as we speak. All you got to do is read the papers and watch what's going on.
How about the academy itself? I mean, is it staying true to its mission?
Pretty true and tried and true. It's just really very academically rigorous. It's still based on meritocracies, not on equality or equity or any of that stuff. So if the young man or woman is at the academy and they're getting ahead, it's not because of the color of their skin or their minority status.
Because they've worked hard.
Because they work hard. It's a meritocracy, because that's what the service is supposed to be about. Now, there's been a lot of discussion over the last decade that we've kind of skewed that a little bit. We're picking people for the wrong reasons. One of this, one of that, which is really wrong.
No,
very wrong.
People. Now, the academy, correct me if I'm wrong, now offers, you don't have to just, you can be an engineer if you want to, but there are other
Yes,
degrees.
There's many. 28 majors right now.
There's 28 majors.
Started when I was there, actually. And
Really?
of the 28 majors, they also offer, not only can you go aviation pilot, you can also be a naval flight officer, which is basically radio intercept officer in the jets, or a navigator in the P3, or a tactical coordinator. But you also have guys that want to go surface line, drive ships, submarines, there's 220 every year that go Marine Corps.
Really?
And they serve in the Marines. So the Marines don't have their own academy. They go to the Naval Academy.
They go to the Naval Academy.
And that's where they come out. But you have Supply Corps, CEC, all the other subcategories.
You be a history major at the academy now?
Well, I was a history major.
Oh, you were a history major?
Yeah, I was a European studies, but I was my degree was in engineering, but my major was in European studies.
Well, you're at the academy.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. So you can do
but you have to take extra courses, yeah.
Oh, that's on top of the engineering degree.
Yeah.
Is that still true?
It's still true.
Oh, okay. So when someone tells me they were a history major,
Take a lot of credits.
Okay.
So instead of the 120 credits, you get maybe 130, 140.
Okay.
It's a lot more studying.
We'll have some fun. If to do all over, would you still, as a 12-year-old, tell your uncle that, you know what, I'm going to fly, I want to be a Navy?
No doubt about it.
Oh,
and I owe not only to my uncle that inspiration. That's why I wrote a book about him and my dad. But I owe the inspiration to the guys that I went through. I've got guys that I still see all the time that were my classmates that were in my same area that pulled me over the threshold and mentored me through. And had it not been for those guys, and also the great leaders I worked for in the Navy, I would have made it to Navy captain. No. So do it all over again? You bet. Good. I wouldn't change a thing.
Now, the 4 minutes, you mentioned books.
Yes.
You've written a number of books?
2 books. One book I've written 4, but the 2 books that I really thought were powerful and impactful. I wrote one book about inspiring leadership, character and ethics matter.
This is all part of when you were leadership?
When I was in Academy Leadership doing my work there, and we used it. It's also an ethics book that's being taught in a number of schools right now, colleges. And I wrote about my class mates and their ethical decision making, and also some famous people and how they kind of matched up with those people. The second
title?
Inspiring Leadership, Character and Ethics Matter.
Can you get that on Amazon?
Absolutely.
Okay. Repeat it again.
Huh?
Repeat it.
Inspiring Leadership, Character and Ethics Matter.
On Amazon. And you just happen to have a copy here, hopefully.
It's right here. There it is.
And if you're
Inspiring
at
Leadership.
home, get on Amazon. Okay.
There you go. It's an interesting book. Now, the other book I wrote, which I'm really proud of, is about my father.
Oh, okay.
And it's about leadership.
And this is the Martini.
Pardon me?
This is your
This is the
Italian
copy.
father. Okay.
My Father's Compass.
Okay.
Leadership Lessons for an Immigrant Son. So this is based on my Uncle Mario and my dad, Perry Sr. is the barber, and how they served in World War II, how they came over this country and made something of
what
themselves.
branch? Let me go.
Both in the Navy.
Both parents?
Guess what? Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Guess where I went.
You had no choice.
My dad was my mentor, my leader, and each chapter was filled with information about why he came to America, why he became an American citizen. Well, he wanted to get out of poverty.
Okay.
And they were really very, very poor in southern Italy, part of southern Italy.
That's my family, Alicante, same thing.
Yeah,
there was no future there.
Came to Ellis with his mom and dad, and eventually became an American citizen throughout his life. He just loved his country of Italy.
What got him to Ohio?
Well, because
Family?
that's where the work was.
Oh, that's what
Grandpa found work on the railroads and in the steel mills.
Okay.
And there was also other family members from Italy there, so they always went to where they wanted to go.
My family, they went to Cambridge because all the cousins and uncles were there.
So I have cousins in Kent, Ohio, Ravenna, Ohio, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. They all kind of centered in that, what used to be the steel belt, now the rust belt.
And how is your dad?
Dad passed away. Oh, yeah, he passed away, it'll be 30 years this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay. And
1994.
Big, amazing influence on you.
Oh, tremendous influence. He never got to see me. He got to see me fly. He got to see me become a captain. He got to see me get into the Pentagon, but he never was able to see me as a deputy athletic director. He would have loved that.
Oh, he would have
used to come back for
free
football.
haircuts for the whole squad.
Oh my
right?
God, yes, God, yes. I could tell a lot of stories about my dad, but some of them are in the book. So,
oh, good. Do me a favor, hold the book up again.
I will too.
Amazon also.
It's on Amazon, yes, sir. It is.
Which is good.
So a lot of them, a lot of times. These are earlier stage book, 2006 and 7, but they're still active and out there, and they're selling. And I've done a lot of book signings at Italian American clubs, and pushed it around.
Okay, we're gonna get you when you come to our veterans group and talk.
There, we'll do that. Yeah.
Well, Perry, our time's just about up.
I know it's about a minute to go.
You've got to be somewhere. Keep Bernie Sadusky honest on the golf course.
I will.
And when you tell him we're interviewing him in 2 weeks,
right?
He said to me, "Fred, you're going to give me easy questions." Say, Bernie, Fred's going to throw you softballs the whole time.
I would say this only as I get down to the last few seconds. It's the fastest 30 minutes of my life.
Oh, it is. Period never ends. Well, again, thank you for your service.
Thank you,
Thanks
Fred.
for spending the day.
Appreciate it.
My name's Fred McNeil. Thank you for watching QAC TV 7. My time's up. Thank you for your time. We're going to see you next time.